Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasure together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth. And the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth, and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. Ye have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rain. Be ye also patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. Grudge not one against another, brethren, lest ye be condemned. Behold, the judge standeth before the door. Take, my brethren, the prophets, who have spoken in the name of the Lord, for an example of suffering, affliction, and of patience. Behold, we count them happy which endure. Ye have heard of the patience of Job, and have seen the end of the Lord, that the Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy. But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by the earth, neither by any other oath. But let your yea be yea, and your nay, nay, lest ye fall into condemnation. Is any among you afflicted? Let him pray. Is any merry? Let him sing psalms. Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church, and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith shall save the sick, and the Lord shall raise him up. And if he have committed sins, they shall be forgiven him. Confess your faults one to another, and pray one for another, that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. Elijah was a man subject to like passions as we are, and he prayed earnestly that it might not rain, and it rained not on the earth by the space of 3 years and 6 months. And he prayed again, and the heaven gave rain, and the earth brought forth her fruit. Brethren, if any of you do err from the truth, and one convert him, let him know that he which converteth the sinner from the error of his way shall save a soul from death, and shall hide a multitude of sins.
Hello and welcome everybody to our next edition of this wonderful little book, The Divine Program of the World's History by Albert Close. Today we are on page 28 and under the subtitle Rome Pagan Succeeded by Rome Papal. And where have you ever heard that in a church or any other institution in this incredibly odd world we live in today by the standards of history? You know, it's really odd, you guys, you know, Daryl and Jörg, you know, when we grow up in this world and we're taught the things of this world and we're given the Bible, that no one ever really sits down and explains from the position of the Bible. They only explain from the position of, you know, well, this is how you make money in the world, and this is how you get a good job, and you know, you got to be making as much as you can, and you got to sell out all you can, and just do, you know, and they don't ever tell you anything about the Bible. You got to figure that out for yourself, don't you?
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm just off on a rant here. I'm joined here with my wonderful brothers in Christ, Daryl Eberhardt there in Pennsylvania, and also Jörg Lissman in Belgium, all the way from Belgium in Europe. So it's just amazing to have this this study going on and continue. And I'm very, very grateful for both of you. And I just want to open it up to whoever has, Jörg, would you like to take it from here? And let's get into this.
I just wanted to give Daryl the possibility because he's the elder. I wanted to give him the word.
Sure.
Please, Daryl.
I could say rub it in.
No, I'm just respecting you, brother.
No, I know, Jörg. I know you are. And I'm feeling every one of those 71 years this morning because we still have a bunch of snow on the ground.
Winter's tough, man. It's tough. This time of year is so stressful, you know.
And in my neck of southwest central Pennsylvania, I'm not too close from the summit of a mountain. And so we're having one of our a little bit more typical of about 20 years ago winters, where the snow is probably going to be on the ground most of the year, and the moisture that's in the air because of the snow on the ground and the near constant rain, freezing rain, snow, and then snow on top of it, and then more freezing rain on top of it, and etc. It keeps the humidity level up pretty high, which kind of has a very bad effect on my stroke side, the side that was totally paralyzed, and thank God a good bit of it's come back, but it still makes, whenever the humidity's high, it makes movement so much harder because that stroke side, the right side, which is my dominant side, that arm and leg are a lot more harder to get moving and drag around the house, etc. But I'm thankful to God that I can walk. And as already mentioned, Bret did, I'm thankful too that I'm able to be on with both of you and to be able to review some very important history, and also, as we always try to do, is promote Bible reading with if you're an English-speaking person, the correct Bible, the Old King James, because there is a difference, folks, between the Old and the New King James, including on the manuscripts that they use for their translation. So we'll just leave it there. The best Bible for English-speaking people is the Old, what they called the Authorized. Many times they use the 1611 Authorized version, but the Authorized, the Old King James Bible, is the Bible for English-speaking people to use. So we want to promote the Bible. And we do promote people like we're going to do today. I mentioned Dr. Ronald Cook, and we will be talking maybe a little bit about him later. He's written two great books that I just got my extra copies in the mail, and Bret's looking for his because we had his dear wife, Sharon, mail those out to me anyway, that I got them, I think, a little sooner than what Bret's going to get his. But Dr. Cook has written many materials, but this over 700 pages of two books called Antichrist Exposed, and they get into what the Reformers and the Puritan scholars and that all said about the identity of the Antichrist. And they nailed it down, folks. They didn't agree, all the Reformers didn't agree on everything, but there was one topic that they all agreed on, and that was the identity of the Antichrist. And they all correctly identified the identity of the Antichrist as being the office of the papacy. And he's got a picture on each of these books, and maybe Jörg knows. I'm guessing that these are drawings of Ridley and Hugh Latimer, because you got a picture of two men being burned at the stake. And, of course, Hugh Latimer and Nicholas Ridley were burned back to back at the stake. One of the reasons being is that they correctly identified the office of the papacy as the Antichrist. But again, the subtitle of this two-book set of over 740 pages, I believe, called Antichrist Exposed, The Reformed and Puritan View of the Antichrist. Just quote after quote after excellent quote. And I think on the one YouTuber we did the one time, one of us read that H. Grattan Guinness quote that's on the back. That's a great quotation. Maybe we can do that quotation sometime during this. But we're going to go ahead and look at Albert Close's book. And again, I've got that up right in front of me. And Albert Close wrote at least, I think, 3 different good books, and I've got 2 of them. And this is one of them, and the other one is the Jesuit plots from Elizabethan times to, I think, modern times, something like that on the title. And because of men like that, and men who have gone before us, like Patrick Hamilton, Jerome of Prague, Jan Hus, there are just so many, and many of them gave their lives for biblical truth. So we're following in some very, 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 very brave men and women. We're women that, like Anne Askew and others, that were martyred for their faith in the Lord Jesus Christ and biblical truth. So good to be on with you guys, and let's get the ball rolling on Albert Close once we get the rest of the introduction in here. And thank you both for including me in this.
You're welcome, Daryl.
Thank you, Daryl, for coming along with us here. And I just want to say, when you started on the weather, well, I don't want to make you jealous, but we have about, I think, 50 degrees, 52 degrees outside, sun shining all day. I'm very sorry to tell you that, but we don't have any winter.
No.
That is probably because they want to sell us the global warming, you know.
Sure.
But you see it all over the world. You see snow in Africa. You see snow in Saudi Arabia. You see very, very much snow and cold in the United States of America and Canada, all over the world. There is this one YouTube channel out that is Adam1984, and he produces each month a video of strange weather all over the world. Floods, tsunamis, rain, torrential rain, what's it called? Snow, and this other stuff that comes down, these pieces of ice, when it rains pieces of ice, what's they called? Hailstorms and all that, you know?
Yes.
These hails, when those come down, so he produces, or he uploads every month about about the 15th of the month, a video of the weather, strange weather occurring around the world the months before. And when you have a look at that, you see that this whole agenda of global warming is just the Antichrist speaking out of his behind, and nothing else. But
that's right, especially when you pay attention to what the Pope has said about the climate change. Yeah.
But anyway, I very much enjoyed the weather that we had today, and I'm very glad that we are come together today, all three in quite a good health. That gives us the possibility and the opportunity to continue in the book reading of the divine program of the world's history. And without any further delay, I would very much like to start. I just wanted to say one more thing. I had today a comment on one of my German videos from Eric777, who is an American, and I guess at least Bret knows him. I don't know if Daryl knows him. He has a YouTube channel called Eric777. He is a very, very well-read researcher in the Jesuit order. I mean, that guy is a walking encyclopedia on what he always says about the Jesuit order. It's just incredible what he puts out, also the videos he puts out. And he commented on one of my German videos and put in 2 links from a German magazine that is called The Spiegel, which is in English called The Mirror. That is like what you have over there in the United States, like the Time magazine or what. And
there's a mirror. There's a mirror in Great Britain, isn't there?
Yeah, and one of these articles is from 1958, and it deals with the Vatican billions. It actually deals with what I read in one of my Hour of the Truth years ago, the founding of Hollywood, 20th Century Fox, being founded by the now Bank of America, which was then the Bank of Italy. Who was running by Giannini, or what that guy's name is, who was funded by the Jesuits. And this Jesuit bank, the Bank of America today, is in 51% possession of the Jesuits. And they funded Hollywood through these credits they gave 20th Century Fox in the late 1920s or beginning of 1930s. And then they came out, of course, with movies like Gone with the Wind and all that stuff, where they started their Jesuitical Antichrist movie propaganda with. And this article is even speaking about that. It gives so much insight into the Vatican Bank. I told my mother I have to do research for the next coming weeks to get all these people mentioned in this article, to get pictures of them and their background on them. And that is so interesting to get a German article from a German magazine from 1958 from an American. This is just crazy.
No,
on the one hand,
he's Canadian, right?
Yeah, I know. I don't know. Yeah, it's possible that he's Canadian. But
yeah, he's not from the United States, I don't think.
Okay, the point is, that is the Holy Spirit working, even across the borders of languages, you know? That guy provides me with these PDFs where I can make very profound German videos on to warn my German brethren of the Jesuit order, even more than I do in other books. Yeah, but anyway, today, and I don't want to rant too far on this, we are already a few minutes in the video. We want to continue the reading of the book, Divine Program of the World's History by Albert Close. As Bret already said, we are on page 28 in the book, or in page 23 if you have the PDF. And you see here this little yellow mark. That is where we have to start today's reading, number 8. Rome Pagan succeeded by Rome Papal. The rule of Rome, we repeat, has never ceased. It was a secular pagan power for 5 or 6 centuries. It has been an ecclesiastical and apostate Christian power ever since, that is to say, for 12 or 13 centuries. There lay a brief period between these two main stages, during which professing Christian emperors ruled from Rome, followed by an interval when, for a time, it seemed as if the great city had received a fatal blow from her Gothic captors. Now, one very important word again in this sentence, like you know the other one with the authentic history, this one very important word, authentic. Here he says, during which professing Christian emperors. They are professing to be Christian, but they are not Christian. He speaks, of course, in the first place about Emperor Constantine, who had this quote-unquote vision of that sign and the cross telling him, by this sign conquer. The God of the Bible would never give a sword to a worldly quote-unquote king or emperor to kill off other people in the times of the New Testament. It was something else, let me tell you, in the times of the Old Testament. It was something different when God was using his chosen people, Israel, to fight for their country and their place in the world, because he had to protect the bloodline that he mentions in Genesis chapter 3 verse 15. But once Jesus Christ came, we are to embrace our enemies. We are to love our enemies. We are not to kill our enemies, and surely not with a material sword. Therefore, Constantine was just a professing Christian emperor. And that is very important that we understand that. Constantine never was a Christian in the biblical sense. He was a Christian in the Roman Catholic sense. Yeah, he was a professing Christian. Means, I profess Jesus Christ, but I don't believe him, I don't teach him, and surely I do not live him. Very, very important to make that distinction, dear brothers and sisters who watch this video. I don't know if you guys have any comment on what I just said.
I agree 100% with what Jörg just said, and people who have studied, secular historians who have studied Constantine, see no indication that he was anything other than a pagan, that he is alleged, supposed conversion to Christianity was, as Jörg pointed out, it was with his lips only. There was no indication from history that this individual, Constantine, ever was a real Christian and ever acted like a real Christian. Period.
Thank you, Daryl. It seemed so, the author says. But it was not so, for the word of God cannot be broken. The rule of Rome revived in a new form after AD 607, when Boniface III became the first pope. Now,
bam!
I went extensively on this little part already, that the 1260 years of Revelation have to be identified as the time between 606/607, because it happened in the end of that year, sorry, and
That's
1866 until 1870. I do not repeat this right here, but I'm going to give you 3 references where you can look that up, what I'm telling you right now. One reference is the book from Alexander Hislop, published in 1853, The Two Babylons. The other one is from Martin Luther, published in 1545, Against the Roman Papacy, an Institution of the Devil. And the third one is Henry Grattan Guinness, Romanism and the Reformation. And I don't know, there are probably numerous other places too, but those are 3 places that I have read with my own eyes, where that is read, where that is written. And therefore, that is the real time of the 1260-day year prophecy. And once again, Albert Close comes here to confirm what I told you in earlier videos already, and now he confirms this with his own eyes, that Boniface III became the first pope because Emperor Phocas gave him the first power, the spiritual power, not only over the Western Church, which he had because he was the Bishop of Rome, but also the spiritual power on the Eastern Church from Constantinople. By that, putting aside the Bishop of Constantinople and giving that power to the quote-unquote Pontifex Maximus, the supreme bridge builder. What kind of bridge is he building? Well, the bridge between East and West, between the Eastern and the Western Church. And then they split up in 1054. But that's another subject. But the point is, the rule of Rome revived after 476, when it fell into these 10 nations, the 10 horns, and revived in a new form in papal Rome after AD 607, when Boniface III became the first pope, because he was so given the spiritual power by, at that time, the Roman Emperor Phocas, who ruled from Constantinople. There was a power vacuum in Rome ever since Constantine left Rome in the early 4th century, and he set up his seat of being Roman Emperor in Byzantine, which was then called Byzantium, and which is then called Constantinople, which today, by the way, is called, if I'm not mistaken, Istanbul, right?
Yes, correct.
So in modern Turkey. And interesting is that Istanbul has a very big bridge over the quote-unquote Bosporus. It has a very big bridge that connects Turkey with the with the European country. So there again you have a bridge, the bridge builder. Okay, but do a little bit of your own research. But this little sentence, I cannot just go over it and read it. I have to go a little bit into that history. People, listen, whatever you have been told, sorry, just a second, Daryl.
Sure.
Whatever you have been told in school in history was so boring that you almost fell off your chair. When you study real history, you sit on the top of your chair. Please, Daryl.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, because I'm looking at a little working aid that I have made up about good book recommendations, and of course the Two Babylons that Jörg just mentioned was written by Alexander Hislop, and I've got 2 versions of it in my home. It's 330 pages long. The paperback version that is sold by, I have a hardback also, sold by Chick Publications, and I would urge everyone, it's a scholarly work. It's got a lot of drawings, but it will show you, well, I'll tell you what it shows you. It's this, what the chick describes it as, the original work by Alexander Hislop that shows the Babylonian origin of many Catholic teachings. Heavy scholarly reading. They can get that at Chick Publications, and that's chick.com, like a little chicken, a baby chicken, CHICK.com, chick.com. I'd urge them to get that book, the Two Babylons, by Alexander Hislop through Chick Publications. So thanks, Jörg, let me say that.
And he not only points out, as the cover of the book here says, the two Babylons, the papal worship proved to be the worship of Nimrod and his wife Semiramis. He proves in this book that all religion in this world, Buddhism, Hinduism, Shaivism, Taoism, you name it, they all have the same root, Babylon. That's what combines all them. And that's what makes it so easy for the ecumenical movement to combine all these world religions, because, in fact, they all have the same source. They have the same roots, Babylon. And there is only one religion, which is the true religion, that explains to you where this Babylon actually comes from, because in no other religion are you told where that Babylon comes from. But that Babylon comes from the Bible and is being spoken about after the time of the big flood, when Nimrod, who was the son of Ham, I think, went into the land of Shinar and founded a city, rebelling against God, because God said, go into the world and make the world your dominion. He didn't say go there, build a city and build fences around the city and close everybody in the city. No, he didn't say that, but that's what Nimrod did. Because Nimrod, as the Bible says, was a mighty hunter before the Lord. What does that mean? That means he was a mighty hunter of souls. And that's what's it all about. Getting the souls. Whether the Holy Spirit gets them, or whether the demonic spirit gets them. Nimrod was not working for the first. He was working for the latter. Roman rule, the author continues, was as real under the popes of the 13th century as it had been under the Caesars of the first. It was as oppressive, cruel and bloody under Innocent III as it had been under Nero and Domitian. The reality was the same, though the forms had changed. The Caesars did not persecute the witnesses of Jesus more severely and bitterly than did the popes. Diocletian did not destroy the saints or oppose the gospel more than did the Inquisition of papal days, and it was all done under the cloak of quote-unquote Christianity. Rome is one and the same all through, semper eadem, never changing, both locally and morally, both spiritually and temporal. One dreadful wild beast represents her. Through the symbol, like the history it prefigures, has two parts. There was the undivided stage, and there has been the tenfold stage, meaning pagan and papal Rome. The one is Rome pagan, the other Rome papal. The one is the old empire, the other the modern pontificate. The one is the empire of the Caesars, the other is the Roman pontiffs or papal dynasty. I'm just going to show you one little picture that I want to show you in that regard, that the Pope still considers himself to be Caesar. And this picture says more than 1,000 words I could ever say. All hail Caesar. Because Antichrist, Pope Pius IX, who has the longest ruling pontificate in the history of the popes, all 266 of them that were there, even though we know there were less popes, because we have to start with Innocent III, Boniface III, as we just learned, and not all the popes the Roman Catholic Church counts. But this Antichrist, Pope Pius IX, ruling in the 19th century, more than 30 years, in his Discorsi on page 253 said, quote, "The Caesar who now addresses you, and to whom alone are obedience and fidelity due." That means the Pope is Caesar. The Pope is the spiritual veil he hides behind the position of the quote-unquote leader of the Roman Catholic Church. And on the other hand, he is the leader of the Vatican, of the beast, of the political power, of the temporal power, of the fourth beast of Daniel. Okay? They even admitted themselves. Pope Pius IX said, "The Caesar who now addresses you and to whom alone are obedience and fidelity due." So this means that from the horse's mouth itself, the Pope is Caesar, whether you like it or not. The power of the papacy to still interfere in the affairs of European nations, notwithstanding its direct temporal power, has been taken away since 1870. Here we are again. 607, as you read here. Here. Just won't get color. 607, just mark it. And 1870, right here. That's 1260 days, years. No, let's not quibble about the 4 years missing in there, because it's actually 1866 and the time after that. And in 1870, the Vatican has been taking away all its temporal power, as the author says here, has been strikingly demonstrated during the Great European War, which broke out in August 1914, speaking of the First World War. Because of the intrigues of the German and Austrian Jesuits at the Vatican, the British government claimed that it was compelled to send Sir Henry Howard as a special envoy to checkmate Austria and Germany at the papal court. Sir Henry Howard receives a salary of £3,600 per year, whilst Admiral Beatty, the victor of the North Sea battle, receives but £1,500 a year. Now, it is almost a little bygone that you read the sentence, because of the intrigues of the German and Austrian Jesuits at the Vatican. Those are the real founders of the war. Those are the real powers behind it. Not the German people, not the Austrian people, not the Italian people, not the Turkish people, not the American people, not the English people, not the French people. The Jesuits. The Jesuits behind every country. Because in their oath they say that they will do everything to stir up war and intrigues in every country that they are, even to the extent that they go against their brother Jesuits who may be engaged on the other side secretly. They control always both sides. And to be more specific, to the ones who don't understand plain English, they always control all sides. The papal little horn's dominion has been taken away in 1866. But his dynasty, meaning and speaking of his spiritual power, is still a tremendous power for evil and mischief. A dynasty frequently remains long after the crown has been lost. There are kings in Europe today who have no kingdom, meaning the King of Portugal, for example, the Bourbon King of France, and last of all the Pope. Last of all the Pope. The rise of the little horn or papal dynasty amongst the 10 kingdoms of Europe. This is an interesting development we are going to watch now. Let us now briefly consider the papal dynasty and its history as portrayed in this vision in Daniel chapter 7 verses 8 through 27. And I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. I spoke about those, being the Vandals, the Herules, and the Ostrogoths. Then will I know the truth of the 4th beast, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are the 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times, and the dividing of time. He shall think to change times and laws. The examples that I could mention for these are so numerous that I spare my brothers on the call and you who are watching this video of all, but just a few. First of all, the Gregorian calendar is what we are living under. The Gregorian calendar was initiated in 1582 by Pope Gregory. That's why it's called the Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian calendar not only deleted 11 days from the 4th to the 15th of October, so after the 4th, the next day was the 15th, but it was the next weekday, so the weekdays did not change, meaning Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but just the dates changed. He also introduced New Year on the 1st of January instead of the 1st of April. That's where you get April Fool's Day from, because you are fooled by the system when you believe the true beginning of the new year, which is in spring and not in the cold, dark winter. And the day before New Year, 1st of January, he called Sylvester. At least we call it this over here in Europe. Of course, that is in veneration of Antichrist, Pope Sylvester. In the 1970s, over here in Europe, they made a DIN norm. DIN stands for Deutsche Industrienorm, which is German industrial norm. That is a normalizing system they have over here in Europe that keeps itself busy with a lot of standards in processing things, measuring things, and all that stuff. And the DIN norm they put out in the 1970s that I'm speaking about is the DIN norm that speaks about changing the weekdays. They officially teach over here in Europe that Monday is the first day of the week. Do you know how convenient that is, that now the 7th day of the week is Sunday? But that's because he thinks to change times and laws. He not actually changes them. Okay? He only changes them if you submit to his teaching in that regard. And those are only 2 little examples I just wanted to mention. You can probably take out many, many, many more. But we want to continue reading in this book and not get lost in the details. As soon as you understand the thinking point behind this, as soon as you get the message, you can apply that message to all the other examples too. But maybe one of my 2 brothers, Daryl or Bret, have a little comment on what I just said here.
Yes.
Just in total agreement.
Mm-hmm. And you know, I think that's a perfect example of a very modern change in Europe of this little horn. Yeah, perfect.
Daryl?
No, just in total agreement with everything you said, Jörg. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we were still in verse 25, ending with telling that they, speaking of the saints, shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time, which is 42 months, 3.5 years, 1,260 days. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Not like we just had in the picture of Pope Francis entering the United States Congress in 2015, All Hail Caesar, where he says, the Caesar, whom alone obedience and fidelity are due. No, Daniel says that, and the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Him alone is obedience and fidelity due. The fulfillment of these sacred visions has now been traced from Nebuchadnezzar through Cyrus the Persian and Alexander the Great, Antiochus and Scipio, Pompey and Caesar, down to the times of Valens and Romulus Augustulus, the last emperor of Rome. The changeful alliances of the European kingdoms, their tenfold number, and the main outlines of their character and history carry on this prophetic narrative to our own days and right on to the last age of the Church. The events of the 5th century and the powers which have then arose in Western Europe have been found exactly to agree with the inspired prediction. The prophecy now reveals to us a further event, more remarkable than the former. In the latter stage of the Fourth Empire, i.e. the Roman Empire, while it is parting into 10 kingdoms, or speaking of the pagan when it becomes papal, another power is then to arise by which 3 of these are uprooted. This power was to be distinct in kind from the rest, and of far higher pretensions. Its mouth speaks great things, and its look is more stout than that of its fellows. It claims authority. It claims authority. It usurps authority over times and laws, and over the saints of God. The course of the prophecy leaves us here scarcely any choice in our judgment of its meaning. You know, this last sentence I found very profound, very interesting, and too hard to just get over it. It claims authority over times and laws and over the saints of God. It claims authority over the saints of God. He steals from God what belongs to God. It is God's creation. The saints are God's people. But the Antichrist claims authority over these saints. He doesn't have it, but he claims to have it. And if they don't submit to his authority, they are killed, persecuted. They are JFK'd. They are tortured. They are inquisitioned. They are made 1 head or 2 head or 3 heads shorter. They be cut in half. They be flayed. They be slain. They be tortured, they be killed in all possible ways, because he claims to have authority over the saints of God. But a true saint of God will never surrender to the authority of a mere man. and surely not to the authority of the Pope of Rome. So this power claims the authority, but he will never ever get it. The course of the prophecy leaves us here scarcely any choice in our judgment of its meaning. This unknown and mysterious power was to arise amid the 10 kingdoms of the Western Empire soon after that empire passed away. It was to have a distinct seat and place in the body of the Fourth Empire, speaking of the Roman. At the same time, it was to claim a prophetic character and to exert a direct authority over the 10 kings which would arise along with it. Daniel's foreview was a distant one in the days of Belshazzar, too distant altogether for detail. No artist paints the sheep on the hillside if the hill be 50 miles off. He may sketch its bold outline, but he omits minor detail. So Daniel's distant foreview, dating from 2,500 years ago where we are now, or 600 BC, shows the two great sections of the Roman history, the undivided military empire, think of the Jesuits who are regimini militantis ecclesiae, followed by the commonwealth of papal kingdom, the latter as truly Latin in character as the former. And he shows the end of Rome at the second advent of Christ, but he refrains from encumbering his striking sketch with confusing political details. He does not fail, however, to delineate fully the moral and religious features of the power ruling from Rome during the second half of the story, the power symbolized by the proud, intelligent, blasphemous, head-like and great-mouthed little horn of the Roman beast. To this he devotes, on the contrary, the greater part of the prophecy. And now carefully note the various points that prove this horn to be a marvelous prophetic symbol or hieroglyph of the Roman papacy, fitting as one of the Yale or Chubb key fits the lock for which it is made perfectly and in every part, while it refuses absolutely to adapt itself to any other. The main points in the nature, the main points in the character and actings of this little horn, which we must note in order to discover the power intended, are these. 1. The little horn arises amidst the 10 horns or kingdoms of the fourth beast, and that fourth beast is the Roman Empire. You can check that in verse 24. The Roman papacy rose in the midst of the 10 kingdoms of Western Europe, which grew up out of the ruins of the old Roman Empire, as we can see in Daniel chapter 7. The spiritual claims of the papacy were made just before its temporal dominions were acquired, soon after the fall of the Western Empire and its breaking up into the 10 kingdoms of Western Europe. The last bishop of Rome and the first pope was Boniface III, AD 607-608. Now the Western Empire of Rome came to an end with the fall of Romulus Augustulus in AD 476. That is 130 years earlier. Now during that time the 10 kingdoms of Western Europe were forming on the ruins of the old empire and shaping themselves into separate kingdoms. And during that time, the simple pastor of the Church of Rome was transformed into a pope who claimed to be King of Kings over all earthly monarchs. Now, that just comes an idea to me, and I want to show you that idea. When I go to this website of presenceofgodministry.org, we go to the section of warning the Antichrist, characteristics of Antichrist, and there we see a wonderful page opening up, and it deals with exterminates 3 nations. So what are the 10 nations the Roman Empire falls into? The 10 horns the Roman Empire, the pagan Roman Empire, fell into in 476, where the Alemannis, which is now called Germany. You have to maybe know when you speak different languages, for example French, you know German in French is Allemagne. Alemannis comes from that same word root. The Alemannis are German. The Visigoths, which is now called Spain, is number 2. The Franks, which is now called France, that's easy. The Suaves, which is now called Portugal. The Burgundians, which is now called Switzerland, because Burgundy was an old part of France, by the way, but that's later on. The Anglo-Saxons, well, you know that, of course, as Americans, that is now called England. Yeah. And the Lombards, which is now called Italy. And then you had 3 others you probably have never ever even heard of. The Ostrogoths, the Vandals, and the Heruli. The 3 divisions which were plucked up when the Heruli in 493, the Vandals in 534, and finally the Ostrogoths in 538. And I have to tell you, even beyond that time, even beyond 550, they still were fighting the Ostrogoths. Justinian, the emperor, who we see was at Constantinople, working through General Belisarius, was the power that overthrew the kingdoms represented by the 3 horns. And the reason of their overthrow was their adherence to Arianism in opposition to the Orthodox Catholic faith, the Roman Catholic faith, we should say. Yeah? Catholic empires of the Eastern Empire found ways to help the Pope by eliminating 3 of the Arian tribes. These Arian people, because they believed in Arianism, that is a denial of Jesus being the Christ, that is a denial of Jesus being 100% man and 100% God. These Arian-type nations would not agree with the Pope's plans. The Catholic Emperor Zeno arranged a treaty with the Ostrogoths in 487, which resulted in the eradication of that kingdom of the Arian Herules in 492. The Catholic Emperor Justinian in 527 through 565 exterminated the Arian Vandals in 534 and significantly broke the power of the Arian Ostrogoths in 538. Thus were Daniel's 3 horns, the Herules, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths, plucked up by the roots, exactly in the same wording as the Bible tells us. During the time of the 10 kingdoms of Western Europe were forming, on the ruins of the old empire and shaping themselves into separate kingdoms, and during that time the simple pastor of the Church of Rome was transferred into a pope, who claimed to be King of Kings over all earthly monarchs. The horn in part resembles the other, being like them a horn of the beast. In part it differs from them, since it has eyes and a great mouth. The papacy was till 1870 one among many temporal states of Europe, the Vatican. It's a kingdom. It's a little place, 108 acres small, but it was until 1870 among many other temporal states of Europe, one of them. It is the only one which claims in the name of God a spiritual authority and universal, speak Catholic, dominion over all earthly monarchs. The little horn is diminutive in size. The papal dominions, or the states of the Church, have always formed one of the smallest states in Europe. You can go through these and you will see Verona, you will see Venice and other little papal states, papal cities that were papal states, and you will always see they were small. And today you have the smallest kingdom in the whole world, the smallest country of the whole world, ruling them all. 108 acres of the Vatican. I think I have an interesting picture of that. Let me just see if I can find that easily. when I use the word Vatican. I'm going to type it in German because I think it's a German picture that I want to show you. I have so many pictures, I don't know all the ones, but I think I've had that in German. No, it seems to be, it's in English, so let me just type the English version of the Vatican, and then I probably may find it. It's a very interesting picture to see, if I can find it. If I cannot find it, then just excuse me for babbling on about this, but it's such a picture where it shows how little the Vatican actually is. How have we all come to subdue ourselves to this little nation state? You know which picture I mean, right, Bret?
I do. Possibly. Possibly. I'm not sure, since you're saying it's German, if I've seen it.
I'm not sure if it's German or if it's English. That's why I'm looking for it in English now. I didn't even see it in English.
Is it the one from 1929? No.
No, I don't. It's just, how have we become... You used this in one of your videos.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
How is it that we all adhere to this little kingdom there, and then they show this in the map, how small the Vatican actually is.
That's right. And it shows the border.
Yeah, and that's the one that I'm looking for here. I don't have it. Maybe you can look in the meantime on your computer.
Okay.
If you can find it, because you put it in your video.
Oh, sure.
I just don't find it here anymore, but I think it is very profound for our
very
listeners.
Fitting, yes.
It was very fitting, to have a look at that. But I just don't find it here, so I must have saved it.
I know, there's so many different images.
Yeah, I have more than 5,000 pictures here on the computer, so it's not so easy to keep with all.
I have one here. I'm not sure.
But when you have it, you can put it.
I'm going to send it over.
Yeah, send it over, or put it on the screen and share the screen with you. That's also possible here.
Yeah, here. Let me just. Boy, I am technically challenged this morning.
Are you?
Yeah, a little bit. Trying to go through. Okay, I'm almost there. Okay, there we go. Now I sent it. There you go, brother. Should be arriving shortly.
Yeah, I got it here.
Is that
but that's not the picture that I meant, because this makes it clear, but you don't see the
outline of the rest
of Rome and all that stuff around. You had this one picture where you said, "How come we all adhere to this little state?" and then pointing a big arrow.
I remember that video. Yes, I do.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
But this gives the people at least a little idea.
I'm sorry, there's just so many images of this floating around that, it's easy to make profound statements like that and then just get lost in the rest of the study.
Well, we don't have that much time to go anymore on our broadcast. I will just continue, and when you find in the meantime that picture, just send it over and I can put it in here. Okay? And if not,
it's lost. Forget it. I'm never going to find it.
Then it's for another time. Don't matter.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, the author says the little horn is diminutive in size. The papal dominions, or the states of the church, have always formed one of the smallest, the smallest states in Europe. At least the Vatican has. Now, the little horn's nature, different from the other kingdoms, though in some respects like them. It was a horn, but with eyes and a mouth. It would be a kingdom like the rest, a monarchy, but its kings would be overseers, or bishops, and false prophets. Now you know where you got your word Holy See from, an overseer. Yeah? In modern times, as in past ages, the eye is symbolic to the office of oversight, meaning of the work and dignity of an overseer of others. By the eyes of this little horn, it was signified that this little king, little, petite, so far as his temporal dominions were concerned, yet he would claim the office of overseer of the whole 10 great kings or horns. Taking the title bishop in its original sense of overseer, the whole emblem, a horn with eyes, would most accurately represent a bishop king. Besides the eyes, there were the mouths, by which great things were spoken against the Most High, that is, blasphemous, in the claiming to exercise divine prerogatives and powers, and of arrogating divine titles, though only a sinful man. The Pope said, "I can do almost all that God can do." Look that up. It's an official quote. Does not the papacy fulfill every one of these features? Everyone? Not the majority, not a part, no, everyone? What other ruling monarch of Christendom ever pretended to apostolic authority or ruled 10 kingdoms in the name of God? Does not the Pope dress both in royal robes and in priestly garments? Does he wear a crown? Yeah, and a triple tiara to show that he reigns in heaven, earth, and hell. Does he wield a scepter? Nay, but a crozier or crook to show that he is the good shepherd of the church. Do his subject kiss his hand? Nay, but his toe. Have a look at the toe of Jupiter, which resembles Peter, which resembles God in the Roman Catholic Church. Take a look at the statue of Peter in the Vatican and his feet. Do his subjects kiss his hand? But they kiss his toe, they kiss his feet. Verily, this power is diverse from the rest, both in great things and little. It is small in size, it is gigantic in its pretensions. It is, or was, for centuries, one among many temporal kingdoms in Europe. It is the only one whose ruling head claims spiritual authority and dominion as a bishop-king over all 10 kings of Western Europe, and, in fact, over all the monarchs and kings of the whole earth. In a little footnote, the author tells us that in Daniel chapter 2 may be said to have been a small-scale chart of the whole future history of the world from Daniel's day to the second coming of Christ. Daniel chapter 7 and the book of Revelation are the large-scale detailed charts in the world's history. Now we continue with the last point 4, which says, "The little horn has further a human and articulate voice. Its mouth speaks great things against the Most High, blasphemous words. So also the pretensions of the Roman See are distinct in kind from those of temporal rulers. It claims a character as far superior to theirs as man to the irrational beasts, and professes to be an infallible interpreter of the will of God." An infallible interpreter, because when the Pope speaks ex cathedra, he speaks infallible. That's Roman Catholic teaching put into written Roman Catholic canon law in the Vatican Council in 1870. And with this, I'm going to end the reading for today, and looking forward to the 2 closing comments of Brother Daryl and Brother Bret. Please, Daryl.
Again, good to be on with both of you and covering a very, very important book by Albert Close. And again, he's written at least, that we know of, 3 very good books, maybe more. And so, again, just an honor and a privilege to be on with both of you, trying to get truth out to folks. And as we know, a lot of history has been erased by Jesuit-controlled papal Rome. And this history needs to be brought to the fore. And again, we need to promote, again, the reading of the Bible, because that's by far the most important book in the world. It's the operating manual for the human soul, and again, for English-speaking peoples. make sure that you get a copy of the old King James Bible and study it. And that's where we have found a lot of great truths about prophetic, the prophecies in the Bible that are contained in the book of Daniel, contained in the book of Revelation, and that very clearly show who this Antichrist of history is. And it's very, very clear that the office of the papacy is the historic Antichrist. And this is important truth that we need to get out to folks. So again, thank you both for letting me tag along, and good to get truth out to folks.
Thanks, Daryl. Wonderful. I just love the reading you're doing here, Jörg, and it's just great to hear this suppressed history of the true spirit of Protestantism, the protest, protesting this infallible claim that he thinks to change times and laws. He doesn't change them. He only makes us obey, his will, and thereby usurping the power of Christ Almighty. So, yeah, it's just wonderful to keep the study going, and really looking forward to continuing next time in the Pope's blasphemy, great words spoken against the Most High God. And that's exactly what happens today. It still continues. The blasphemous Pope continues. And we see his office crumbling after 5 years. And the word's out that, he's, if he can't make things happen for the Roman Catholic Church, then he needs to step down and someone else needs to come in. And we're in a really strange part of history right now. And we'll see what happens here, brothers. I'm just as concerned as anyone else as to the times and seasons we are living in biblically today, because it seems to me that most everything's been fulfilled, and we're just waiting for the hammer to fall from this papal usurper of Christ, because at his stroke of his pen, he can order tremendously evil things to happen. And it might not even be Pope Francis that will do it. He might even step down. We don't even know what the future has in store, but it sure is very tense right now. So with that, I think we'll close it up. Any further comments from Jörg or Daryl?
Not for me.
Okay.
Not for me.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now. God bless.
From whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence even of your lusts that war in your members? Ye lust and have not, ye kill and desire to have and cannot obtain. Ye fight and war, yet ye have not because ye ask not. Ye ask and receive not because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lusts. Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. Do ye think that the Scripture saith in vain, the Spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth to envy? But he giveth more grace. Wherefore he saith, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Be afflicted, and mourn, and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning, and your joy to heaviness. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up. Speak not evil one of another, brethren. He that speaketh evil of his brother and judgeth his brother speaketh evil of the law, and judgeth the law. But if thou judge the law, thou art not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver who is able to save and to destroy. Who art thou that judgest another? Go to now, ye that say today or tomorrow, we will go into such a city, and continue there a year, and buy, and sell, and get gain. Whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor, that appeareth for a little time, and then vanisheth away. For that ye ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that. But now ye rejoice in your boastings. All such rejoicing is evil. Therefore to him that knoweth to do good, and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire.